Dateline Las Vegas. The UFC is back here in the fight capital of the world for one of the biggest events of the year as the UFC makes their debut inside the Sphere here on Mexican Independence Day, which is set to be a historic card headlined by none other than the Sugar Show superstar Sean O'Malley taking on the rightful contender in Merab Dvalishvili. This fight clock is brought to you by Toyo Tires, official tire of UFC. O'Malley in the black and gold, befitting a champion. Good early movement by Sean O'Malley. Merab starting to kind of march him down and move forward. Front kick up the middle by Sean. That stabbing front kick. Ooh! Good counter right hand by O'Malley. Good patience by O'Malley here. Starting to showboat a little bit. Playing basketball out there. Slides back. Oh, a counter right hand by O'Malley. Down goes Merab. Oh my goodness, Merab. He's out. And the referee calls a stop to the contest. Sean O'Malley with a starching KO victory over Merab Dvalishvili. The Sugar Show! What's up, everybody? Sugar Sean O'Malley is going to make easy work of Merab Dvalishvili at UFC 306. Now, look, I know Merab Dvalishvili is a fantastic fighter. He brings a lot of unique things to the table in a matchup here with Sean. But when I'm going back and I'm watching the tape, there are just so many holes in the game of Merab that I think Sean is going to exploit in this matchup. Now, first, I want to discuss why I think that this is going to happen. We're going to break down the fight and talk about what Merab I think he's going to try to do, and then we're going to talk about what Sean is going to do. But I think Sean O'Malley gets this done inside 2 rounds, right? And I think that the key, the all-around consensus when breaking down this fight is, look, if this goes the distance, Merab is probably going to win by a decision. But if this fight gets stopped at some point, it's going to be Sean O'Malley finishing Merab Dvalishvili, which I think are definitely the 2 most likely outcomes, right? I think that you don't have to be some aficionado in MMA to realize that, by doing a little bit of research here, that's probably how this fight is going to go. Now, look, I just think as good as Merab is, right, because he's an alien, right? He's got incredible pace, incredible cardio. He has good wrestling. But where is the threat really with Merab, right? Coming into this fight, if I'm Sean O'Malley, I'm like, thank God, because it's like, if this guy's not going to knock me out, he's not going to submit me, right? I know that this is a fight, anything can happen, but off of what we've seen in the career of Merab, he's just basically a decision machine. He's the machine, but he's also a decision machine. And what he does is he overwhelms people with a pace, pressure, and volume that guys just cannot keep up with. And I think that Sean O'Malley is the hardest fight Merab Dvalishvili has had in his entire MMA career, while I think Merab is not the hardest fight that Sean has had. I think Aljamain Sterling is the hardest fight that Sean O'Malley has had. And I think Aljo is a better fighter than Merab Dvalishvili. But I do want to also mention, I'm really looking forward to this fight, right? Whether I think O'Malley makes quick work of Merab or not, I'm actually really happy that the UFC put this fight together, because we've seen too many times in the UFC now where the business side tends to take over and we give undeserved title shots to guys, where we have a contender like a Merab or like Bilal was at the time, where we have a guy on a very extensive win streak who has earned a title shot and should be fighting for the title, but because of business and because whatever other reason, the UFC's like, this guy's not exciting or whatever, so we're going to give the shot to someone who doesn't deserve it. Like, I hate when the UFC does that. We finally have a guy who is very deserving of a title shot. He's been on a tear. No one's like, hey, I want to fight Merab. Like, this is a guy that everyone has been kind of avoiding. So this is a fun matchup, because Sean O'Malley, he's a guy who never says no, and he's willing to take on the toughest test. This is one of the toughest tests in the division, and Merab Dvalishvili is definitely the guy that should be getting the shot here against Sean O'Malley. Now, I want to discuss what I think Merab is going to bring to the table that's going to cause some issues for Sean if Sean can't get him out of there early, and then we'll get into what I think how I think he's going to capitalize. So Merab, like I said, the pace, the pressure, and the cardio of Merab, it's the best in the UFC. It's the best in the UFC. We have never seen somebody, I think, in UFC history that fights like Merab, with this chaotic pace, this pressure, this just non-stop action that he could do from round 1 all the way up to the end of round 5. There is no lulls. There's no like dips in energy. Merab is like foot on the gas the entire 25 minutes, which that's kind of concerning, right? Because if you're a guy like O'Malley, who's very explosive, very fast, has good footwork, is very elusive, those guys tend to get tired. They tend to not have the greatest of gas tanks usually, right? Because something has to give. If you're explosive and you're fast twitchy, the first thing that usually goes is usually the cardio. But Sean O'Malley has shown he has the ability to go a full 3 rounds. But in that 5-round fight with Marlon Chito Vera, he even showed he could go 5 rounds, which is, I think, was some of the questions that you had coming into the fight against Marlon Vera. Is it's like, look, if this gets into the later rounds, if Vera's still around, what can O'Malley do? And we saw Sean O'Malley absolutely picked him apart. He dominated Marlon Vera in that fight. And people want to say it was an undeserved shot for Chito Vera. And like, I get your argument, but look, the UFC's trying to build O'Malley. They wanted to get that one back. You know, look, Chito Vera's a good fighter, but we've seen it takes the guy forever to get going, and Sean O'Malley was just ahead of him the entire time. So I think when you look at this fight, Merab, he is a very skilled fighter in terms of the wrestling, in terms of the pace and the pressure, but he doesn't present a lot of issues here to Sean O'Malley, in my opinion, because look, Merab leaves himself very open to being countered. He leaves himself very open to being countered. Look, outside of the pace and the wrestling, there's not much else. His striking, he kind of just marches forward with, his hands are kind of going like this, and he just kind of marches forward at you. He doesn't cut the cage off very well. His entries are not the best. And when Merab is doing his best work, it's guys that are standing in front of him. And people want to bring up that Petr Yan fight against Merab Dvalishvili, and they even want to bring up the Jose Aldo fight. Look, those guys are outstanding strikers, but where do they get a lot of their work done? In that tight boxing range, to where Petr Yan can let his hands go, where he can let some of those tie techniques go, to where Jose Aldo can be on the inside, throwing that nasty liver shot, throwing those calf kicks. And those guys are in front of you. They are in range to be attacked with the wrestling, to where Sean O'Malley, he's a fast, long-rangey guy who wants to keep you at range. Sean O'Malley doesn't want to be in the phone booth giving you an opportunity when he can stay at range and really snap on those shots and hit and not get hit, because that's the game of Sean O'Malley, hit and not get hit. So this is a very, very different style matchup than a guy like Petr Yan and a guy like Aldo, which both of those guys are outstanding fighters and outstanding strikers, but this Sean O'Malley is a completely different style than them, right? When you watch Henry Cejudo early on in that fight, Henry Cejudo is not some world-class striker, but he does have decent movement and he has decent fight IQ, to where he's in that kind of karate stance. He's sitting on the outside, he's cutting angles, and he was never standing directly in front of Merab. And you saw that gave Merab quite a bit of problems, to the point where Henry was able to actually even rock him with a nasty left hook that we saw a few fights back, in the career of Merab Dvalishvili. He was rocked by the same shot against Marlon Moraes. Now, I'm very adamant about this. Fighters can improve, right? You can have a guy out here that's with his technique and they tighten everything up and the punches flow better. But there's certain tendencies that fighters have that tend to, they happen, right? You're vulnerable to certain things. And despite how much you improve, those things tend to pop up. Those little vulnerabilities tend to always be there. And we've seen this with a guy like Volkanovski, who backs up, leaves his chin in the air, and drops his hand. We see it with Gaethje. If he's very patient now, but if you bring him into a brawl, he'll dip his head, he'll duck down, to where you can throw a knee up the middle, spinning back kick like Holloway did. And so it's on the fighters and their coaches to find those vulnerabilities. And you don't think that Tim Welch, an outstanding coach, and Sean O'Malley are not going to have this written down, and every weakness and every tendency that Merab has noted? They are absolutely going to come into this fight looking for that left hook. Now, do they land the left hook? Yet to be seen. I think it's going to be a counter right hand by Sean O'Malley that ultimately puts Merab face down into the canvas, and then we get a stoppage. Because look, this fight is what I've said before with it, when you fight Israel Adesanya. You let a cat out in a room, a wild cat, and you're like, go ahead and catch it. It's very hard to do. You're like running around. You're like, how do I get this thing? That's what Merab's going to be doing against Sean O'Malley. He's going to have a very, very hard time getting a hold of Sean, because Sean not only is tall and lanky and rangy for the weight class, but he's incredibly powerful with incredible speed. And normally in the lighter weight classes, if you're that tall and lanky, you don't exactly have the most thud on your shots. You have, that range, but to have one shot power like Sean O'Malley has is absolutely terrifying, on top of the speed, on top of the footwork. And that's what's going to give Merab a nightmare or a ton of issues in this fight, is trying to get a hold of Sean, because anytime you try to move forward and close him down, you're going to be getting stabbed in the gut with nasty front kicks, nasty teeps up the middle. He's going to be utilizing the jab. He's going to be keeping you at range the entire time. He's got good spinning back kicks. He's got good side kicks, and he switches stances and cuts angles so well that it's very hard to just move forward and close him down. And when Merab does move forward, he gets reckless. And when you get reckless against Sean O'Malley, this type of thing happens. You get absolutely starched by, like Aljamain Sterling did. You tend to overextend. You tend to get a little desperate because you're getting, you're getting teeped to the midsection, which, by the way, those absolutely suck, right? Not only do they hurt, they start to take the wind out of the sail. They start to make you tired, and they start to affect your breathing. And Sean O'Malley, he does this just about better than anybody in the UFC, utilizing the teeps. Sean Strickland does a good job of this. Conor McGregor back in the day did a great job of this. Adesanya uses this tool as well. This is a absolute kryptonite user against a wrestler, is using a teep up the middle, because when you throw a kick to the leg, you can catch it and take him down. But when you throw a teep up the middle, it's kind of hard to catch the teep and then take somebody down. So that's why it's such a great weapon to use on a wrestler. But I truly envision this fight looking like the Conor McGregor versus Eddie Alvarez type of fight. Now, I'm not saying it's going to be that same fight-ending sequence that Conor landed on Eddie Alvarez, but I think it's a very similar matchup because the UFC knows what they're doing here. Look, headlining the Sphere, this is a huge card. You got Riyadh season a part of it, Mexican Independence Day in the Sphere, this big, thing that Dana's built up with, where we got this super team ready to rock and roll for this. They are putting Sean O'Malley in a position to succeed. Now, does that mean that they're handing Sean O'Malley a victory? No, the stars are aligning, but he's got to go out there and get the job done. But Merab Dvalishvili, he's not really a threat. Outside of the pace, the pressure, the cardio, he's not much of a threat. He doesn't have the best of striking, and there's a lot of holes in the game to where Sean O'Malley is going to be able to exploit those. It's also important to keep in mind, Sean O'Malley has really good takedown defense of his own. He has good grappling of his own. He has good jiu-jitsu. So who's to say that he can't pull off a submission? I know it's not incredibly likely, but people sleep on the grappling of Sean O'Malley. And this is a matchup. This goes back to the Conor McGregor back in the day blueprint. Give these long, rangy strikers with outstanding counter abilities, give them these stocky wrestlers that like to march forward. And I would like to mention that those guys, yes, that is a heavier weight class that Conor was fighting. They're much better strikers than Merab, but Merab has a better pace than they do. And while Merab does have good wrestling, what does he really do with the takedowns? He kind of holds you there. His ground and pound's okay. There's no really submission threat here. I just think that Merab Dvalishvili is going to be walking into traps upon traps against Sean O'Malley. I think that Tim Welch, O'Malley's coach, is an outstanding coach. They are going to have Sean very well prepared for this fight. I think Merab is going to realize how difficult it is to get a hold of Sean O'Malley. I believe that Sean O'Malley is going to keep him at the end of his front kicks, at the end of range. He's going to slide back and counter with a nasty right hand and send Merab face first into the canvas with a viral KO that the UFC will then post a full fight immediately after, just like when O'Malley KO'd Aljamain Sterling. And it'll play right into the agenda that the UFC wants, which is to make Sean O'Malley one of the biggest stars that they have had inside the company. But I want to hear from you all down in the comments. Like this video, subscribe to the channel, help your boy out. See you next time.